G'day folks, today we're going to be taking this class 31 Rail 12 from Settle to Carlisle. We'll be going up and over Asgill, doing the full length of the route. We need to keep to a very tight schedule with this route, so we can't hang about. We are currently at Settle Junction, which is a few miles south of Settle Station. Just a bit up the line we'll be leaving the Leeds and Morecambe line, and then heading up the Settle and Carlisle line proper towards our first stop at Settle Station. It's been a few years since I've regularly played Train Simulator Classic, so I'm not quite as sharp as I used to be, but you can still expect a clean run with no infractions and full points scored. Being a bit out of practice makes it a bit harder to judge speed and braking distances, so let's see how I do. There are a couple of track overspeed sensors protecting the next signal, so we need to make sure we start to slow down just before we get to them, or it will trigger the emergency train brakes. Yes, a 60-year-old crate like Class 31 does have modern safety systems fitted. In fact, these Locos were still in regular service up until only a few years ago. Once this DMU is out of the way, we'll be able to head on up to the station. Okay, here we go. There's a lot of uphill gradient from here on in, so we need to get the Loco up to speed quickly before the hill starts to slow us down. Once our tail is clear of the speed restriction, we can really get moving. The Leeds and Morecambe line is leaving us on the left here, and the game HUD is now showing the gradient increasing. The A65 passes overhead at the next bridge, and we're just a mile off our first stop and only have 37 seconds in hand. That's not a lot, but one mistake can quickly reduce that. One problem with this line is a lot of the stations are short. Tiny would be a better call, which makes it very hard to get all of the coaches aligned to the platforms when they start. Even harder as this train is longer than one or two platforms. I'll try to get close, but on this route stopping quickly is more important, so you do not lose any time and keep to the schedule. First stop done at Settle Station. I'm quite happy with that stop. It's a lot closer to spot on than I was expecting, but we did lose a little bit of time. We lost nearly half the time we had in hand, but I should be able to make some of that back up on the next section. Next stop, Gribblehead Station in 10 miles. There's a nice view of Settle with our Class 31 smoking away. The Class 31 had a number of nicknames. One was Top Fiapple because of the shape of the controls. Another was Gurgler due to the sound they make. Our local today is D5515, which is a very early one. These early locos were called skinheads because they did not have head codes, which was fitted to the later engines. The game depiction of 5515 is not quite right in this regard as it's shown with a head code, which was never fitted to this loco in real life. The line as shown in this game is based on quite a wide time period, from the 1920s up until quite modern times. Looking at Google Earth and comparing the two, what is shown here is still close to what you find online today. Even looking at OS maps from the 1930s, it's surprising to see not much has changed in nearly 100 years. What do we have here? It's a road freight Class 31 behind tanks, I think. Back in the 1980s, the British rail management in this area were a little bit fixated with the West Coast Main. Anything else, and they just weren't interested. The Settle and Carlisle line was an old Victorian relic, needed dirty diesels, and took money away from their flagship electrified main line. So the management set about trying to close it down. They increased maintenance so that the running costs were high. In truth, the work was not needed. They also claimed that the Gribblehead Viaduct, which we'll get to quite soon, was falling down and would cost too much to fix. Of course, the locals were up in arms. This railway is their only link out of the area, and a great many of them campaigned to keep it open. One of them was a structural engineer. He did his own report on the state of the viaduct, and it turns out British Rail had been telling porkies, and in fact it was in quite good condition. This and the work of others got the line closure reversed, and today stations are reopening and industry is having new sidings added to the line and rail traffic is increasing. This is Stanforth Tunnel, named after nearby village. And even with the throttle wide open for all this time, we're still not up to line speed. This line is one of the steepest in the UK. Now passing over the river Ribble, which snakes back and forth underneath the line for the next few miles. Buildings on the left are a quarry which has been expanded and has been linked up with the line. Today you'll find sidings all along the left hand side of the track here. Out at sight on the left is another large quarry which used to be linked to the line just ahead. Plans are in the work to reinstate the sidings here that were removed in the 1980s. We are now approaching Horton in Ribbonsdale Station, but we won't be stopping there today. seem to have lost a bit of time and are now running 20 seconds behind. Now we're up to line speed, I might be able to claw some of that back. 3 miles to Ribbonhead Station. Speed restriction coming up before we get to the station. Not too bad a stop. We made up a bit of time and now only 3 seconds behind, which is good. More new sidings here. Although there is an old quarry here, these sidings are now used for loading of timber. Off again, given the last signals were at caution, the ones ahead should be at red, so we need to be ready to stop. Okay, we have something big coming over the viaduct, which is only a single lane, so we'll have to wait for it to pass. Class 66 doing heavy work there. And we're off across the Ribblehead Viaduct. Grand name for a grand structure. Fun fact, the viaduct used to be called Batty Moss Viaduct, which I think is a much better name for it. Frame signal ahead is for the sidings on our right, so we can ignore the red there. These sidings are used for locos that have run round timber trains coming out of the sidings back at the station, so they can head off southwards. Just ahead is the Mill Tunnel. One of the things I try and do in these videos is to talk all the while going through tunnels, as it's a long dark black hole that does not really offer much in the way of visual entertainment. So, to that end, this tunnel was completed in 1875 for just over £100,000. That would be about £13 million today after adjusting for inflation. It took 4 years to complete and is just under 1.5 miles long and passes 500 feet below the level above. Back to driving for a second. We're coming up to the end of the Long Drag, which is the nickname for the longest climb in the UK rail network, which we've just done. We're at full throttle. If you don't knock the power back at the right point here, it's very easy to end up speeding. We're not quite at the highest point on the line, but for a few miles the gradient is not a lot easier to deal with. We are 3.5 miles from there, the highest station on the line, and 25 seconds behind, which is not too good at this stage. Once we're up to line speed, we may be able to get some of that back. It's not too far to our next stop. I think we're about halfway through this tunnel, and there's not much more I can say about it, other than it's long and dark. Oh, there are 3 air shafts, which get used for ventilation. There was 7, but 4 have been blocked off. And I think I can see light at the end of the tunnel. Just a mile to go to Dent. We'll have to cut back on our speed early where it drops to 30. Well, we're clawing back some time now, so I'm going to leave the braking as late as possible. Just before the building on the right hand platform is a sign that proclaims that this station is the highest in England, at 1150 feet above sea level. That was a very good stop. Almost perfect. Fading seconds late, but that should be close enough for 4 points here. Good, 4 points. So now we're off to Garsdale, which is 3 and a bit miles further off. I hope you've enjoyed the trip so far. Please join me for part 2 where we will continue this journey down Asgill and on into Carlisle. Don't forget to like and subscribe if that's your thing, and I hope to see you in the next instalment. Cheers.
Oh.